Hello and welcome to the Petersfield Bookshop Recommends. This is our series of short videos in which we take a look at a particular genre or type of writing, or perhaps a subject or even a single author, and provide some recommendations. We think you're all pretty smart cookies out there and able to find the bestsellers and the big name authors for yourself, so we will try and send you down some slightly less well-trodden byways in the company of writers perhaps not so well known. This video takes a look at recent British poetry, and by recent we really mean recent. None of the books recommended in this video were published before 2020. We do quite a lot with poetry in the shop, as well as a monthly poetry evening. We also have a very big selection of second-hand poetry which spans from all the way from Chaucer right up to the 21st century. So we know that people sometimes find modern poetry in particular a little challenging. So all of the recommendations on this video have been chosen with a view to putting before people who might find modern poetry challenging things that will actually inspire them and draw them in. The first book on this video is Much with Body by Polly Atkin. Polly is a resident of the Lake District, and that is very much the setting of this book. You will encounter within it all kinds of nature and wildness. There are frogs and stags and herons and owls and even a bear in a library, it has to be said. Polly writes from the perspective of someone living with chronic pain, and so all of those poems intersect with her life in that way, and also in her life as a wild swimmer. Towards the back of the book, she takes on an encounter with the writings of Dorothy Wordsworth, also, of course, well known for the Lake District writing, but in Dorothy Wordsworth journals, there is an awful lot of writing about rain and about being ill. And Polly Atkin takes that on and creates poems out of Dorothy Wordsworth's own words from her journals. It's a fascinating book. It is one that I have gone back to many times. Deformations by Sacha Dugdale is possibly one of the most difficult books on this list to describe what it is about. Largely it is concerned with life as it is lived, as a messy, sometimes traumatic and difficult experience, and how that life is then changed when it is turned into biography or mythology, and of course also poetry. And to this end there are two long sequences of poems in this book, one at the beginning and one at the end, the first of which deals with the difficult subject of Eric Gill, who was both an artistic genius and also the serial abuser of his daughters and his sister. She takes that messy and difficult life on, and without giving him a voice, provides us with an account of some of that, which is both challenging, but also very subtle and deft and quite important. And then at the end of the book, there is another sequence which is based on Homer's Odyssey. We're on slightly firmer ground here because we recognise the form of telling an old myth in an anachronistic way. So this is the Odyssey, or episodes from the Odyssey, told in modern day settings and situations. But in doing so, she's able to also quite disturbingly at times unpick some of the issues around what we would call today toxic masculinity and the culture of fighting and violence that seems to hang around it. It is not the easiest book on this list, but it is certainly well worth a go and is extraordinarily well written and well crafted. Shine Darling by Ella Frears has on the blurb on the back the words uncompromising, intelligent, surprising, accessible and sharp, and they are all of those things and much more. They are poems that are written in a strongly female voice, both as a girl and as a woman, and they concern sexual awakening, sexual development, sexual desire, violence, some of which also is sexual. Some of the poems are rather dark, but they are all lush and bold and provoking, and people reading this collection, I think, will be either or surprised, affirmed, or enlivened by them. The next book is Rendang by Will Harris. I really enjoyed this book. It feels like 1,000 stories have been packed into 90 pages, sometimes 6 or 7 stories per poem almost. It is a dense book. It is absolutely full of what feel like ephemeral and fleeting stories about friends and family and people that the poet has heard of, little stories that they add together to make something quite strong. The settings are very cosmopolitan. There are stories here about London and Illinois and Chicago and West Sumatra. Even the planet Mongo from Flash Gordon gets a look in. But it always comes back to London. It is perhaps because of the cosmopolitan approach, it is a book which feels very much a London book. And in all these fleeting stories that we read throughout this book, that the effect of the whole is to create a really dense and intense picture of a life well lived. If I had to choose a favourite from this list of recommendations, this would probably be it. Grimoire by Robin Robertson is subtitled New Scottish Folk Tales, and it is exactly that. The first poem in the book describes or retells the story of Taliesin, the Welsh bard, in a way in which creates a character of a shape-shifting horned magician who appears again and again throughout the stories that follow. So each poem in the book is a short story in its own right. They are very dark, they have the feel almost of folk horror about them, but they're written in such a way, and in such a direct and conversational way, that you feel they are at the same time stories that could come from some dark folkloric Scottish past, but also might still be happening round the back of Tesco's in Glasgow somewhere. So it's an incredible book. It is dark and redolent with all kinds of history and horror, and it is enhanced no end by the illustrations by Tim Robertson, the author's brother, which have something of the prehistoric and the cave painting about them. I can't recommend this highly enough, and it is a very accessible but also very thought-provoking read. Thank you for listening along. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you would like more, then please do check out our YouTube channel where we are doing more of these videos, and also check out our website, which is www.petersfieldbookshop.com, or find us on Twitter where we are _PBS. Look forward to seeing you again soon.